I never thought I'd be in a situation like this. I always considered my marriage to Jenna solid, built on years of trust and love. We had our issues, sure, like any couple, but nothing that seemed insurmountable. At least that's what I thought until I stumbled into a reality that felt more like a nightmare. Jenna and I have been married for 5 years. When we first met, it was like a fairy tale. She was beautiful, witty, and had a smile that could light up a room. We quickly became inseparable, and I was sure we were destined for a lifetime of happiness together. But lately, I started feeling a shift in our dynamic. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but something felt off. She had been acting differently, more distant, more irritable. It started with little things like her getting annoyed when I asked her about her day. She'd brush off my questions, claiming she was just tired from work, but I could see the spark in her eyes dimming. I tried to dismiss it at first, chalking it up to stress or maybe the mundane routine of everyday life. I even told myself I was being paranoid when friends said they'd noticed the changes too. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday, and I had planned a cozy evening for just the two of us. I had our favorite takeout, a bottle of wine, and a movie ready. I was excited to spend some quality time with Jenna, but when I got home, she was already dressed to go out. "Where are you headed?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, just out with some friends," she said, avoiding eye contact. When I pushed her for details, she got defensive. "You're being paranoid, it's just a girls' night out," she snapped, rolling her eyes. I let it go, wanting to avoid a fight. But as she walked out the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Later that night, I picked up my phone to scroll through social media while I waited for her to return. As I was mindlessly scrolling, I came across a post from her ex-boyfriend, Alex. My heart dropped into my stomach as I read the caption. "Had an amazing date night with this one. Can't wait for our next adventure." Together, I stared at the photo, my mind racing. There was Jenna, laughing and looking radiant, her arm draped around Alex's shoulders. I felt a mix of anger and betrayal wash over me. I had trusted her. I had ignored my instincts when they told me something was wrong. I spent the rest of the night pacing the apartment, my mind spiraling. I couldn't sleep as visions of Jenna and Alex flashed through my head. My heart felt heavy as I thought about everything she had said over the last few weeks, all the lies I'd chosen to ignore. When Jenna finally came home, her face fell as she noticed the tension in the room. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence. I confronted her, my voice trembling with a mixture of hurt and rage. "How could you do this to me? I saw the photo, Jenna. Don't lie to me." Her reaction was immediate. She tried to deny everything, claiming it was just a friendly outing and that I was misunderstanding everything. "You're being ridiculous," she said, crossing her arms defensively. But deep down, I knew I wasn't being paranoid anymore. My world had just shattered, and I was left picking up the pieces. The emotional roller coaster was just beginning. Now I had to figure out how to move forward. I felt a mixture of anger and sadness churning inside me, and I knew I couldn't let this go unanswered. I needed a plan. The betrayal was too deep, and I refused to be the one left standing in the ashes of our marriage. As I sat in silence, I realized I had to confront the reality of my situation. How could I ever trust her again? And what was I going to do about Alex? My mind raced with possibilities, each more vengeful than the last. The night of revelations had only just begun, and I was ready to take the plunge into the chaos that would follow. It was time for me to reclaim my power. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I couldn't focus on anything. Work was a challenge. I felt like a ghost, moving through the motions but not really present. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart would race, half expecting it to be Jenna looking for forgiveness, or worse, another message from Alex. I kept replaying the confrontation in my head. Jenna had insisted it was nothing, just a friendly get-together. I wanted to believe her, but the photo haunted me. I could see the intimacy in the way they stood together, the laughter that echoed through the screen. This wasn't just a casual outing. It was a betrayal of the highest order. Knowing that I needed to gather evidence, I started digging. I had to understand the full extent of her infidelity. I wasn't about to confront her again without knowing just how deep this rabbit hole went. I spent hours on social media, looking through her posts, Alex's posts, and any mutual friends who might share details. It was during one of these late-night scrolls that I came across another picture, this time from Jenna's own account. It was a candid shot from a girls' night out, and she was tagged in a group photo. It looked innocent enough, but one detail stuck out like a sore thumb. Alex's name appeared in the comments. "Looks like you had fun, Jenna. Can't wait for our next get-together." Smiling face with smiling eyes, my blood boiled. It was clear they were still in contact, and this wasn't just a one-off thing. I spent the night plotting my next move. If Jenna thought she could get away with this, she was sorely mistaken. I decided that I'd need to confront her again, but this time I'd come prepared. I gathered screenshots of the incriminating posts, saving them like a detective working on a case. I felt like I was in a war zone, gathering ammunition for a battle I never wanted to fight. When Jenna came home that evening, I acted normal. I made dinner and engaged in small talk, all the while keeping my mind focused on the task at hand. After we finished eating, I took a deep breath and laid it all out. "I need to talk to you about something serious," I said, my heart pounding. "What is it now?" she replied, her tone already defensive. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots. "You said it was nothing, just a friend. But you're clearly still in contact with Alex. This isn't just a casual friendship, is it?" Her eyes widened, and for a moment I thought I saw guilt flash across her face. But then she quickly regained her composure. "You're being ridiculous. This is just a misunderstanding. Alex is just being a friend. You're the one making it weird." I felt my anger boiling. "It's not weird, Jenna. You don't post photos with an ex-boyfriend if it's just friendly. You might think I'm paranoid, but I'm seeing the truth." She stood up and paced the room, her demeanor shifting from defensive to angry. "You're obsessing over this. You're ruining our marriage over a stupid photo. You're being paranoid, and it's not attractive." Paranoid? That word echoed in my head like a mantra. How could I be paranoid when I had the evidence in front of me? I decided I needed to change my approach. Instead of pleading or begging for the truth, I would make her come clean herself. "Okay, Jenna, if it's really nothing, then why don't we call Alex right now? Let's ask him what's really going on," I proposed, trying to keep my voice steady. Her eyes went wide, and I could see the panic behind her facade. "No, don't do that." "It's not necessary," but I pressed on. "Why not? If this is just friendly, what's the harm?" Her silence spoke volumes. I could see the gears turning in her mind as she contemplated her next move. "I don't want to involve him in this," she finally said, her tone softer but still defensive. "It's complicated. I promise it's nothing." "Complicated or just convenient?" I shot back, unable to contain my frustration. The tension in the room was thick. I could feel the walls closing in as every word sliced through the air. I was filled with a mix of anger and sadness, torn between the love I still felt for her and the betrayal that gnawed at my insides. Following our argument, I decided to take action. I was done being a passive participant in my own life. I started planning my revenge, not just for me, but to show her the consequences of her actions. As I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, the ideas began to formulate. I didn't want just a petty revenge. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she had done. The rage bubbled beneath the surface, and I was ready to unleash it. When did my life become this? One moment I was living in what I thought was blissful ignorance, and the next I was embroiled in a web of lies and betrayal. I needed to be strong. It was time to take back control of my life. I was done being the victim. After that evening, the air in our home was thick with tension. I'd managed to scratch the surface of Jenna's defenses, but I hadn't yet penetrated the core of her lies. The way she had shifted her tone and steered clear of any conversation about Alex confirmed what I already knew. There was more to her story than she was letting on. I had to keep digging, and I had to do it without her noticing my plan. Over the next few days, I began to carefully observe her habits. Jenna had always been the type to stay connected through social media, but now every notification on her phone made me stiffen. I noticed her getting more secretive with her phone, quickly turning it face down whenever I entered the room. The small changes were telling, her behavior a stark contrast to the woman I once knew. I decided to take a bold step. I used my skills as a graphic designer to create a fake social media profile. I crafted a persona that would allow me to blend into Jenna's world unnoticed. With my new account, I would befriend her friends and get closer to her circle without her ever suspecting it was me. Once I was in, I watched attentively, noting everything. I discovered that Jenna and Alex were still seeing each other, more frequently than I had anticipated. They attended concerts, went out for drinks, and even went on weekend trips together. Each post felt like a dagger to my heart, and the more I learned, the more enraged I became. It was infuriating to see her so carefree while I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered trust. One evening, I decided to confront her again, but this time armed with tangible proof. I gathered all the screenshots, the posts, the comments, everything I had collected over the last week. I wanted her to see the truth laid out before her, to realize that I wasn't just a paranoid husband but someone who was deeply hurt and betrayed. "Jenna, we need to talk," I said, the weight of the conversation heavy on my shoulders. "What now?" she replied, irritation evident in her voice. I took a deep breath and spread the screenshots across the kitchen table, each image more damning than the last. "You can't deny this, Jenna. You're still seeing Alex, and it's clear you've been lying to me." Her expression shifted from annoyance to shock as she glanced at the evidence. I could see her mind racing, searching for a way to spin this. "Those are just old posts. They don't mean anything," she stammered, grasping at straws. "Old posts. You've been out with him recently, Jenna. You were at that concert together last week. This isn't just a friendly reunion, you're having an affair." My voice was steady, but inside I was a mess of emotions. "I told you it's complicated," she shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. "We're just friends and you're blowing this out of proportion." I leaned closer, my voice firm. "No, you're the one blowing this out of proportion. You're risking our marriage for someone you claim is just a friend. If you want to salvage this, you need to come clean right now." Jenna's face morphed from anger to defeat as the weight of my words settled in. I watched her break, the mask she had worn slipping away, revealing the guilt she had tried so hard to hide. "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Alex, he made me feel alive again." Those words hit me like a freight train. My heart sank as I realized how deep the betrayal ran. This wasn't a simple mistake. This was a profound emotional connection that she had forged behind my back. "So you did have feelings for him," I said softly, fighting back tears. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I love you. I don't want to lose you," she pleaded, her voice cracking. I shook my head, the tears I had been holding back finally spilling over. "But you've already lost me, Jenna. You chose to go to him instead of coming to me. That's not love. That's betrayal." The gravity of the moment hung in the air, and for the first time I could see the truth in her eyes. She had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. I felt a sense of liberation mixed with devastation. I was finally recognizing my worth and refusing to be the victim of her deceit any longer. In those moments of heartbreak, I realized I still had the power to decide what happened next. I was no longer going to sit back and let Jenna dictate my emotions. The revenge I had been planning became clearer in my mind. I would make sure she understood the consequences of her actions, not just for herself, but for both of us. The night wore on, and as we sat in silence, I knew I had a long, difficult road ahead. But I had made it this far, and I wasn't about to let her continue to manipulate the narrative. It was time for me to take control, to reclaim my dignity. As I prepared to move forward, I felt a surge of determination. I wouldn't let her lies define me or our relationship. It was time to show her that the trust she had shattered was not something that could be easily rebuilt. The game was on, and I was ready to play. In the days following our confrontation, I found myself in a whirlwind of emotions. I had exposed Jenna's lies, but the reality of our situation left me feeling raw and vulnerable. I was angry, devastated, and yet somehow, a small part of me felt liberated. There was power in knowing the truth, and I was no longer willing to be a pawn in Jenna's manipulative game. I started devising my plan. I didn't want my revenge to come from a place of petty revenge. I wanted it to be impactful. I needed Jenna to truly feel the weight of her actions, to understand the gravity of what she had done. I wanted her to see the other side of deception, the pain it inflicted not only on me but on the life we had built together. That weekend, while Jenna was out with her friends, probably including Alex, I took the opportunity to put my plan into action. The first step was to reach out to Alex. I wasn't sure how he would respond, but I needed him to understand the impact of his actions as well. I crafted a message, keeping it straightforward yet firm. "Hey Alex, it's Dave. I'm Jenna's husband. I think we need to talk." I hit send, my heart racing. It felt surreal to reach out to the man who had betrayed me, but I knew it was necessary. I needed him to see that this wasn't just a game. Lives were at stake here. As the day passed, I waited anxiously for a response. I wasn't sure what I expected. Maybe an apology, a denial. I just needed to get through to him to make it clear that he wasn't just fooling around with someone. He was messing with a marriage. Later that evening, I received a reply. "Hey man, I didn't realize you found out. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Can we meet?" I felt a mix of satisfaction and anger at his response. He wasn't taking full responsibility, and I knew I had to confront him face to face. I replied with a time and place, a local coffee shop where I hoped we could talk openly without distractions. When the day came, I arrived early, my stomach a knot of tension and anticipation. I spotted Alex as he walked in, looking a bit sheepish. I gestured to an empty table, and he sat down, clearly unsure of how to start. Thanks for meeting with me," he said, nervously rubbing the back of his neck. I wasted no time. "Let's cut to the chase, Alex. You and Jenna have been seeing each other behind my back. Do you even realize the damage you've caused?" He looked uncomfortable but nodded. "I know, man. Honestly, I didn't mean for it to happen. Jenna and I reconnected and it just happened." The casual tone of his words ignited something deep within me. "Just happened. You're talking about another man's wife. Do you have any idea how broken I am because of this? You don't get to act like this is some casual fling. You've crossed a line." He shifted in his seat, the weight of my words finally hitting him. "I get it, and I'm sorry. I never intended to hurt you. Jenna told me things weren't good between you two." "Things weren't good because she was lying. She didn't come to me with her problems. She went to you. You might have thought you were just being a friend, but you were part of the betrayal. The emotional affair that you both started has repercussions. And you need to understand that." He looked down, visibly shaken by my confrontation. I continued, my voice steady. "You need to tell her to end it. I want you both to know that I won't just sit back and let this continue. It's toxic and you're both better than this." Alex met my gaze, and for the first time I saw recognition in his eyes. "You're right," he admitted quietly. "I'll talk to her. I'll make sure it ends." I didn't know if I believed him, but I felt a sense of accomplishment in making my point clear. I thanked him for meeting with me and left the coffee shop, feeling lighter than I had in days. I had taken a stand, and it felt empowering. Back home, Jenna returned late that night, her demeanor giving away nothing. I opted to keep quiet, letting the tension hang in the air. I wanted her to stew a little, to think about the choices she had made. My confrontation with Alex had given me the confidence to confront Jenna again, but this time I wouldn't be seeking answers. I would be demanding accountability. The next day, I approached her after work, my resolve firm. "We need to talk, Jenna." Her eyes narrowed, and I could see the nervousness flicker across her face. "About what?" "About your relationship with Alex. I spoke to him and he's going to end things with you," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. Her reaction was explosive. "You what? How dare you go behind my back and talk to him?" "Why shouldn't I? You didn't think twice about going behind my back, did you? You had an affair, Jenna. You ruined our marriage and you have to face the consequences." She opened her mouth to protest, but no words came out. I could tell she was at a loss for how to respond to the news. I saw the flicker of realization in her eyes that this wasn't just a game anymore. "I want you to think about what you've done," I continued, my voice firm. "I want you to take a step back and truly reflect on whether you want to keep living this lie or come clean and try to fix what's left of us." The fallout was inevitable, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. I was done being the victim in my own life. It was my turn to reclaim my power and my dignity. I was ready for whatever came next, even if it meant dismantling the life we had built together. As I turned to leave, I felt a mix of fear and relief. The truth was out and I had stood my ground. Now it was her turn to decide what kind of future she wanted, both for herself and for us. I was prepared to face the potential fallout, but I would no longer allow her betrayal to define me. The next step was hers, but I would be ready for whatever came next. The days that followed my confrontation with Jenna felt surreal. I had dropped a bombshell into our lives, and the aftermath was an emotional minefield. She was reeling, and I could see the internal struggle playing out on her face. I had finally taken a stand, but the uncertainty of what would happen next loomed large. Jenna took some time to process everything. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the crumbling foundation of our relationship. I could see her weighing her options, caught between the guilt of her actions and the remnants of the life we had built together. I wanted to believe she would choose to fight for us, but I also knew it was possible she might decide to go in the opposite direction. She spent the first couple of days in silence, retreating into her own thoughts. I let her have that space, knowing that she needed time to confront her feelings. It was both frustrating and liberating. I no longer felt like I was the one desperately chasing her affection. The dynamic had shifted, and I was no longer going to be the one left in the dark. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Jenna approached me. Her eyes were red, and it was clear she had been crying. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. We sat down on the couch, the air thick with tension. I could see the hesitation in her eyes, the internal battle she was fighting. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," she began, her voice shaky. "About my mistakes and how I've hurt you." I nodded, not wanting to interrupt her. I needed to hear her out. "I didn't realize how much I was pushing you away," she continued, tears streaming down her face. "I thought I could find comfort in Alex, but it only made everything worse. I never wanted to hurt you, and I can't even begin to express how sorry I am." Her words were raw and filled with remorse, but I couldn't help but feel skeptical. It was easy to say the right things once the truth was out, but I needed to know if she meant it. "Jenna, I need to know if you're really committed to making this work. I don't want empty promises." She looked at me with a mixture of desperation and sincerity. "I want to fight for us. I know I messed up, but I love you, and I want to rebuild what we had. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." "Actions speak louder than words," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You need to cut off all contact with Alex. No more excuses, no more friendships. This can't be a gray area anymore." Her nod was immediate. "I promise I'll block him right now." I watched as she pulled out her phone and began to delete his contact. It was a small step, but it felt significant. I needed to know she was serious about putting an end to the deception. "Jenna, this is going to take time. Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight. I'm going to need space to process everything," I said, my voice firm but calm. "I understand," she replied, her voice breaking. "I just want a chance to make things right." Over the next few weeks, Jenna kept her word. She cut off all communication with Alex and focused on being present in our marriage. She began attending therapy, both individually and together with me. I could see she was genuinely trying to address her issues, but the road ahead was still daunting. I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to forgive her and believe in the potential for reconciliation, while another part was still deeply wounded. With each therapy session, we peeled back the layers of our relationship, addressing the underlying issues that had led to Jenna seeking comfort elsewhere. We talked about our communication breakdown, her feelings of loneliness, and how I had taken her for granted. I was learning to express my feelings more openly, and Jenna was working on being honest about her needs. Though it was an arduous process, there were moments of connection that sparked a glimmer of hope. We began to remember the reasons we fell in love in the first place. We shared laughter, vulnerable moments, and even a few tears. It felt like a fragile dance of rebuilding trust, but I was cautiously optimistic. Yet, even as things began to improve, I couldn't shake the feeling of what had happened. The emotional scars were still fresh, and the image of her with Alex lingered in my mind. I had to remind myself that healing wasn't linear. There would be days of progress followed by setbacks, and I had to be prepared for that. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I noticed how Jenna leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder. I felt a warmth that had been missing for so long, but just as quickly it was overshadowed by a pang of anxiety. Could I truly forgive and move forward? Would I ever be able to fully trust her again? The journey of rebuilding our marriage was just beginning, and I knew it was going to be a long road. I had learned that love was complicated and messy, but it was also worth fighting for. As I held Jenna close, I felt a sense of determination wash over me. We had to face the storm together, and I was willing to try, but it would take time. I believed that we could emerge from this challenge stronger than before, but it would depend on our commitment to facing the truth and working through our pain. I was ready to take that leap of faith, but the final resolution of our relationship was still an open question. What remained was the hope that we could both find our way back to each other, and perhaps, in doing so, discover a new version of love, one grounded in honesty, vulnerability, and a profound understanding of what we had both risked losing. The weeks turned into months, and the process of rebuilding our marriage became a part of our daily lives. Jenna and I worked tirelessly to mend the fractures that had formed between us. The therapy sessions were intense, forcing us to confront feelings we had buried, but they were also therapeutic, providing a space for open dialogue and mutual understanding. Slowly but surely, I noticed changes in Jenna. She became more attentive, more present, and more aware of the little things that had once sparked joy in our relationship. She started planning date nights and surprise outings, trying to recapture the magic we had lost. It was heartwarming to see her put in the effort, and it reminded me of the reasons I fell in love with her in the first place. Yet, shadows of doubt lingered in the corners of my mind. I had moments where the past would rear its ugly head, and the memories of her betrayal would flood back. I felt guilty about my insecurities, knowing that they were remnants of the pain she had caused. But I also realized that it was part of the healing process. It was okay to feel hurt and to take time to rebuild that lost trust. One night we were sitting on the couch after dinner watching a documentary. The atmosphere felt different, lighter. I looked over at Jenna, who was completely engrossed in the film. I felt a swell of affection, and for the first time in a long while I allowed myself to remember the love we shared. "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" I asked, turning to her, my heart racing slightly. "Of course," she replied, pausing the TV. "I just wanted to say that I appreciate the effort you've been putting in. I know it's not easy, and I also know I'm still working through my own feelings," I admitted, choosing my words carefully. "I appreciate you saying that," she responded, her voice sincere. "I'm trying. I want us to be okay again." "Do you really?" I asked, searching her eyes for the honesty I needed. "More than anything," she said earnestly. "I never realized how much I took you for granted until it was almost too late. I'm committed to making things right." Her words struck a chord within me. I wanted to believe her, but I knew I had to be cautious. The road ahead would require patience, and there would still be bumps along the way. As we continued to talk, we shared our hopes and dreams, things we wanted to achieve together. We discussed our plans for the future, the kind of life we envisioned, and how we could support each other in pursuing our individual passions. It was liberating to speak openly, and we both felt a profound sense of connection beginning to bloom again. The following weeks were filled with ups and downs, but we persevered. I found myself laughing more often, allowing moments of joy to seep back into our life. There were still moments where doubt crept in, but each time I felt it, I reminded myself of the work we were putting in. Love isn't just a fairy tale, it's a choice, a commitment to grow together through adversity. One evening, as we walked through a park, hand in hand, I took a moment to reflect. The world felt lighter, and I realized that I was beginning to let go of the bitterness that had once consumed me. I was learning to forgive, not just for Jenna's sake, but for my own. Holding on to anger would only weigh me down, and I didn't want that any longer. A few weeks later, I had a conversation with Alex. After months of silence, I reached out to him again, not out of anger this time, but to find closure. I wanted to express how his actions had affected me. When we met, I told him about Jenna's commitment to making things right. To my surprise, he expressed genuine remorse. I didn't realize how deep the consequences of my actions ran, he admitted. I'm truly sorry for the pain I caused you both. I hope you can find peace. It felt cathartic to finally address the situation directly. It closed a chapter that had weighed heavily on my heart. I returned home feeling lighter, ready to fully embrace the new path Jenna and I were forging together. As I settled into bed that night, I glanced over at Jenna, who was already asleep. I admired the peaceful expression on her face, the vulnerability that had once scared me but now felt comforting. I reached out to hold her hand, a simple gesture that felt like a promise that we were in this together for better or worse. I had learned that relationships are not perfect, but they can evolve. They can grow stronger when tested by fire, provided both partners are willing to put in the work. Jenna had shown me that she was willing to change, and I was learning to open my heart again. Together, we were charting a new course, one built on honesty, healing, and a renewed commitment to each other. While the past would always be a part of our story, it didn't have to dictate our future. I felt an overwhelming sense of hope as I closed my eyes, ready to dream of the life we were rebuilding together, one step at a time.